Rain fell hard on the quiet street. The sound was heavy, slow, and endless, as if the sky itself was crying. She stood outside the large house, barefoot on the cold ground, holding a small bag close to her body. The bag was light. Everything she owned now fit inside it. The front door slammed shut behind her. "You are no longer welcome here," her husband said from inside. His voice was cold, clear, and final. There was no anger in it anymore, only distance. She did not shout. She did not beg. She did not even knock again. She just stood there, frozen, as if her body had forgotten how to move. Her hands trembled and her eyes slowly filled with tears. Only minutes ago, this was her home. Now it was nothing. A bright light turned on inside the house. Through the large window, she could see them. Her husband stood beside another woman. The woman leaned into him, smiling. She wore expensive clothes and gold jewelry. She looked confident, comfortable, like she belonged there. The woman looked at her through the glass and smiled wider. Her husband raised his voice again. "Take her things out. I don't want to see her again." A guard stepped outside and walked toward her. "You have 10 seconds, he said. 10 seconds. Her chest tightened. Her heart beat fast. She remembered the first day she entered this house. She had cleaned every room herself. She had cooked meals late at night when her husband came home tired. She stayed silent when he mocked her in front of guests. She stayed quiet when his family called her useless. She remembered sleeping hungry so she could save money. The rain mixed with her tears. She picked up her bag and took a step back. Then another. The gate behind her slowly closed. The sound was loud, final. She started walking down the street. Each step felt heavy, like her feet were pulling her back. Her stomach hurt. She had not eaten all day. She had given up meals many times before, telling herself it was temporary. She had been saving, always saving. Not for clothes, not for comfort, not even for respect. She stopped walking and turned around one last time. The house was bright. Music had started playing inside. Laughter followed. Glasses clinked. She looked at the house quietly. "You still don't know," she whispered. Inside, her husband laughed. He raised a glass and said, "Finally, peace." The other woman smiled and said, "Now everything is ours." Neither of them looked outside again. She opened her bag slowly. Inside was an old notebook. The pages were worn, the cover faded. She touched it gently, as if it was alive. Her father gave it to her years ago. "Never show everything you have," he once told her. The world does not respect quiet strength. Her father was gone now, but his words were still alive. She remembered sitting beside him in a small room. No luxury, no power, just dignity. He used to say that real strength does not shout. Real power does not need attention. You don't need noise to change lives, he said. The biggest changes happen in silence. She closed the notebook and placed it back in the bag. Her tears stopped. Her face changed. Not angry, not broken, calm. Across the city, a new hospital stood tall. Doctors praised it. News channels called it a miracle. Thousands of lives were being saved there. Everyone talked about the project, but no one knew who truly paid for it. The donor's name was hidden. Only one person knew the truth. And she was standing alone in the rain. Her phone buzzed in her hand. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. She looked down. An unread email. She hesitated, then opened it. The subject line made her breath stop. Final transfer confirmed. Her fingers tightened around the phone. The money had been sent. The work was complete. Everything she had quietly built was now real. She locked the phone and placed it back in her pocket. She adjusted the bag on her shoulder and started walking again, disappearing into the dark street. Behind her, a man celebrated, believing he had won. He threw her out, believing she was nothing. Soon, he would learn the truth. And when that truth came out, everything would change. She walked until the rain became light, and the streetlights grew far apart. The city felt cold at night, even when people were everywhere. Cars passed her, but no one stopped. No one looked twice. She sat on a bench near a closed bus stop and placed her bag beside her. Her clothes were wet. Her hair stuck to her face. She wiped her eyes and took a slow breath. This was not the first time she was alone. Years ago, before the big house, before the expensive cars, she had been alone many times. Back then, no one noticed her either. She remembered the early mornings, waking up before sunrise, cooking simple food, walking long distances to save money. She remembered counting every dollar carefully, always choosing the cheaper option, always saying no to herself. People thought she was weak. People thought she depended on her husband. They were wrong. She leaned back on the bench and closed her eyes. Her mind went back to the beginning of her marriage. He was kind at first. He spoke softly. He promised safety. But as his business grew, his heart became smaller. He liked loud rooms, big parties, important faces. She liked silence. He started calling her boring, then useless, then invisible. When she tried to speak, he laughed. When she stayed quiet, he ignored her. Slowly, she learned that silence was safer than words. But silence did not mean nothing. While he spent money to impress others, she planned quietly. While he chased attention, she focused on purpose. She never asked for permission. She never needed praise. She reached into her bag and pulled out the old notebook again. She opened it carefully. Inside were notes, dates, and names. Everything was written clearly, neatly. This notebook was not just paper. It was proof. Proof of every choice she made. Proof of every sacrifice. Proof that she was never careless. Her phone buzzed again. Another email. Then another. She did not open them. She already knew what they were about. The project was finished. The funds were secured. There was no turning back now. She stood up and walked toward a small motel across the street. It was old, but clean. She paid for one night using cash she kept hidden for emergencies. The man at the desk did not ask questions. Inside the room, she sat on the bed and finally allowed herself to breathe. The silence wrapped around her like a blanket. For the first time that night, she felt safe. She lay back and stared at the ceiling. Her husband's voice echoed in her head. The way he said her name with anger. The way he pointed at the door. The way he smiled when the other woman stood beside him. He believed he had won. He believed she would beg. He believed she would disappear. She turned on her side and closed her eyes. In another part of the city, her husband woke up late the next morning. Sunlight filled the bedroom. The other woman was still asleep beside him. He felt proud, free, powerful. He checked his phone and smiled at the messages. Friends congratulated him. Business partners invited him out. His life felt lighter without her. At breakfast, he spoke loudly about new plans, new investments, new ideas. He laughed when someone mentioned his wife's name. She was nothing, he said. I built everything myself. People nodded. No one questioned him. Later that day, his driver took him past the new hospital. Cameras stood outside. Reporters gathered near the entrance. A ribbon-cutting ceremony was about to begin. He smiled. The city loved success. Inside the hospital, doctors prepared for the event. Nurses whispered with excitement. A large board was covered with cloth, waiting to be revealed. On it were names, titles, and one special line at the top. Founder. The woman sat alone in her motel room and watched the news on her phone. She saw the building, the glass walls, the name covered by cloth. Her heart beat slowly, steadily. This hospital was her dream. Not for fame, not for power, for people who suffered quietly like she once did. She turned off the phone and stood up. She looked at herself in the mirror. Tired eyes, simple clothes, no jewelry, no signs of wealth. Perfect. She picked up her bag and left the room. That evening, her husband stood near the stage, smiling for cameras. He believed the day was about him. He believed his name would shine. He believed the world would clap for him. He did not notice the empty chair in the front row. He did not notice the name still hidden. He did not know that the woman he threw out was walking closer to the truth. And when the truth finally stood in the light, no amount of money or noise would save him. Because the quiet ones never forget. And they never lose. Morning came quietly. The city moved fast, but her world stayed slow and focused. She stood across the street from the hospital, watching people enter and leave. Ambulances arrived. Nurses rushed inside. Families waited with tired faces and hopeful eyes. No one noticed her. She wore simple clothes. Her hair was tied back. She looked like any other woman standing alone in the city. But her eyes stayed on the building, steady and calm. This hospital was not just concrete and glass. It was years of sacrifice. Years of silence. Inside, the staff prepared for a big announcement. The board members walked with confidence. Cameras were set up. Reporters whispered to each other, excited for headlines. Everyone expected one name to be revealed. Her husband's name. Across town, her husband adjusted his suit and smiled at his reflection. He liked days like this. Days when people looked at him with respect. Days when his phone never stopped buzzing. He believed this hospital would seal his place in the city. This is my biggest success, he told the woman beside him. She smiled and fixed his tie. Everyone will know your name now. He believed her. At the hospital, the woman entered quietly through a side door. She walked past the lobby, past the waiting families, past the noise. She felt every step in her chest, but her face stayed calm. A nurse passed by and smiled politely. No one stopped her. She sat in the back row of the main hall and waited. As she waited, her thoughts returned to the past. She remembered the first time she sent money to support a small clinic. She did it quietly, without telling anyone. She remembered the fear she felt every time she signed a transfer, hoping she was doing the right thing. She remembered her husband laughing when she suggested helping others. Charity is useless, he once said. It brings no return. She never argued. She just kept going. On stage, a man stepped forward and tapped the microphone. The room slowly became quiet. The board members sat straight. Cameras lifted. The large screen behind the stage turned on. Today, the man said, we celebrate a project that will save thousands of lives. The audience clapped. He continued speaking about vision, leadership, and generosity. He praised success. He praised power. He praised the future. Her husband smiled proudly from the front row. The woman in the back listened without emotion. Then the man paused. There is someone we must thank, he said. Someone who made all of this possible. Her husband leaned forward. The cloth on the board remained in place. This person, the man said slowly, never asked for attention. Some people looked confused. She never asked for credit. Her husband frowned slightly. She believed real change does not need noise. The woman in the back closed her eyes. For one brief moment, the cloth was pulled away. A name appeared on the screen. It was not her husband's name. It was a woman's name. The room went silent. Her husband stood up suddenly. His smile disappeared. He looked around, searching for answers. The woman beside him whispered something, but he did not hear her. The name stayed on the screen. Clear, undeniable. The founder. People began to whisper. Cameras turned. Board members looked at each other. The air felt heavy. The man on stage spoke again. She funded this hospital from the beginning. Every step. Every dollar. Her husband's hands shook. The woman in the back stood up. Slowly. Calmly. Every head turned toward her as she walked forward. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the silent room. Her husband's eyes widened. He recognized her walk before he recognized her face. She reached the front and stopped. She did not smile. She did not cry. She simply stood there. I did not come for praise, she said softly. Her voice was steady, clear. I came to make sure this place helps people who have no voice. The room stayed silent. Her husband could not speak. I stayed quiet for a long time, she continued. People thought silence meant weakness. She looked at him briefly. They were wrong. She stepped back as the room slowly filled with noise. Questions, shock, confusion. Cameras flashed. People stood. Her husband felt the ground shift under his feet. Everything he believed was his was never his. And this was only the beginning, because outside that room, the truth was already spreading, and it would not stop. The room did not calm down after her words. It only grew louder. People whispered to each other. Reporters spoke into their microphones. Cameras followed her every move. The name on the screen stayed there, bright and clear, like it was burning into the air. Her husband stood frozen near the front row. His mouth was slightly open, but no words came out. The woman beside him grabbed his arm, whispering fast, but he did not hear her. His ears rang. His chest felt tight. This was not possible. This was not how the story was supposed to go. She stepped away from the stage and walked toward the exit. She did not look back. She did not wait for applause. Her purpose was done. Outside the hall, she stopped in a quiet corridor. The noise behind her felt far away. Her hands trembled slightly for the first time that day. Not from fear, but from release. Years of silence had finally spoken. She took a deep breath and continued walking. Inside the hall, the board members tried to control the situation. One of them raised his hand and asked everyone to remain calm. But the damage was done. The truth was out, and it was spreading fast. Her husband forced himself to move. He pushed past people and rushed outside. His face was pale. His confidence was gone. He saw her standing near the exit doors. "Wait," he said, his voice shaking. She turned slowly, for a moment. They just looked at each other. This was the first time he had truly seen her, not as a quiet wife, not as a shadow, but as a woman who held power. "You planned this," he said. His voice was angry, but weak. She did not raise her voice. "I planned to help people," she replied. "Nothing more." "You humiliated me," he said, in front of everyone. She looked at him calmly. "You did that yourself." He opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. His mind raced. He thought of the house, the accounts, the business deals. Fear crept in. The woman who had stood beside him earlier appeared behind him. Her face was tight. She did not look confident anymore. "We should leave," she whispered. But he could not move. "Everything is in my name," he said quickly. "The house, the companies." She nodded once. "Check again." Her phone buzzed in her hand. She did not look at it. She already knew. At that moment, his phone rang. He answered without thinking. His face changed with every word he heard. "What do you mean, frozen?" he said loudly. "That's impossible." People nearby stopped to listen. He lowered his voice. "No, you can't do that without my approval." The call ended. His hands shook. She watched quietly. "I never took what was yours," she said. "I only protected what was mine." He laughed nervously. "You were nothing without me." She stepped closer. "And yet, I built this without you." The woman beside him stepped back slowly. Her eyes moved between them. This was not the man she thought she was with. Security approached and asked everyone to clear the area. She turned and walked away again, this time without stopping. Later that evening, the news was everywhere. Social media exploded. Headlines questioned everything. Who was the real founder? How did no one know? Her husband sat alone in his office, staring at the screen. His name was missing from the stories. Hers was everywhere. The house felt empty. The laughter from the night before was gone. The other woman paced the room, angry and nervous. "This is bad," she said. "Really bad." He did not answer. Lawyers started calling. Banks sent emails. Meetings were canceled. One by one, doors began to close. Across the city, she sat in a quiet room, drinking tea. The noise of the world stayed outside. She opened her notebook and wrote one last line: "Truth does not rush. It waits." She closed the notebook. This was not revenge. This was balance. And the fall had only just begun. The next morning came with heavy silence. The city was awake, but inside the large house, nothing moved. Curtains were still closed. The air felt thick, like something bad was waiting to happen. Her husband sat at the long dining table alone. His phone lay in front of him. It had not stopped vibrating since sunrise. Messages, missed calls, warnings, questions. He did not answer any of them. Across from him, the other woman paced back and forth. Her confidence was gone. Her voice was sharp with fear. "You need to do something," she said. "People are talking. Your name is everywhere, and not in a good way." He rubbed his face and looked up. His eyes were tired, red. "I built this life," he said quietly. "She can't just take it away." The woman laughed bitterly. "Are you sure you built it?" That question hit him harder than any headline. He stood up suddenly. "She planned this," he said. "She stayed quiet on purpose." The woman crossed her arms. "Or maybe you never paid attention." He grabbed his keys and walked out of the house without another word. At the same time, across the city, she sat in a small office. It was simple, clean, no signs of wealth. A man across the desk slid a folder toward her. "Everything is moving forward," he said. "The legal process has started." She nodded. "Good. You don't seem surprised," he said. "I prepared for this years ago," she replied. She signed a few papers calmly. Her hand did not shake. This was not emotional for her. This was necessary. When she left the office, she walked past the hospital again. Patients sat outside with their families. Doctors spoke with care. Life moved on. That was all she ever wanted. Her husband arrived at the hospital later that day. This time, there were no cameras. No smiles. Only security and closed doors. He demanded to see the board. "They are busy," he was told. He waited anyway. Inside, a meeting was already in progress. Her name was spoken with respect. His was spoken with concern. "His accounts are connected to hers," one man said. "We missed it." Another replied, "She never used his name." She stayed invisible. Invisible. That word burned him. He finally received a call from his lawyer. He stepped outside to answer it. "You need to prepare yourself," the lawyer said carefully. "This is serious. What do you mean?" He snapped. "There are documents showing she funded more than just the hospital. Several properties. 2 companies. And the house." His breath caught. "That's impossible." "The paperwork is clear," the lawyer said. "She owns them." The call ended. He stood there, staring at nothing. The world he believed was his began to crumble. Back at the house, the other woman packed her bags. She moved fast, angry and scared. "This is not what I signed up for," she said when he returned. He did not answer. "You said she was nothing," she continued. "You said you controlled everything." He turned toward her slowly. His face was empty. "You should leave," he said. She stared at him in shock. "What?" "This mess started because of you," he said, his voice flat. She laughed. "No, this started because you didn't know your own wife." She grabbed her bags and walked out, slamming the door behind her. For the second time, the house fell silent. That evening, he sat alone in the dark living room. The lights were off. His phone lay on the table, quiet now. No one was calling anymore. Across the city, she stood in front of a mirror. She removed a simple ring from her finger and placed it on the table. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she turned away. She opened her laptop and read the final report. Everything was in motion. There was no stopping it now. This was not anger. This was clarity. And soon, the truth would reach every corner of his life. Because when silence breaks, it breaks everything. The fall did not come loudly. It came quietly, one step at a time. Her husband woke up to an empty house. The other side of the bed was cold. The mirror showed a man he barely recognized. His face looked tired, older. The confidence that once filled his eyes was gone. He checked his phone. No new messages. That silence scared him more than the noise from the day before. He drove to his office early, hoping routine would calm his mind. But as soon as he entered the building, he felt it. People avoided his eyes. Conversations stopped when he passed. His assistant stood up slowly. "Sir, there are some issues." "What now?" He snapped. "The bank accounts are under review. Access is limited." He froze. "That's not possible. I have meetings today." "They were canceled," she said softly. His chest tightened. He walked into his office and closed the door. He sat down heavily and stared at the city through the glass wall. This view once made him feel powerful. Now it made him feel small. Across the city, she sat in a quiet room filled with natural light. Papers were neatly placed on the table. She read each one carefully, then signed. Every signature felt like closing a door behind her. Not in anger, in peace. Her phone rang. She answered calmly. "It's done," the voice on the other end said. "Everything is secure." "Thank you," she replied. She hung up and looked out the window. Life continued as usual. People walked. Cars moved. Children laughed. The world did not stop for anyone. Back at the office, her husband received another call. This time from a partner. "We need to talk," the man said coldly. "Your name is becoming a problem. What does that mean?" He asked. "It means investors are pulling back. They don't trust you." He slammed his hand on the desk. "This is a misunderstanding, is it?" The man replied, "You took credit for things that were never yours." The call ended. He sat there, breathing hard. For the first time, fear settled deep inside him. He left the office early. There was nothing left to do there. At home, he opened drawers, searched for documents, hoping to find proof that he still had control. He found nothing. Everything important was missing. That evening, he received a message from his lawyer. A simple line. "She is not fighting you. She is stepping away." He stared at the words. Stepping away. That confused him. If she wanted revenge, she had already won. But she was not chasing him. She was not attacking. She was simply leaving. Across town, she visited the hospital quietly. She walked through the halls, unseen. Patients rested in beds. Nurses moved with care. A child smiled at her as she passed. This place mattered. This was always the goal. She stopped near a window and thought about the years she spent staying silent. People mistook her quiet nature for weakness. They believed she had no power because she did not show it. They were wrong. Power did not need noise. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. I was wrong. She did not reply. Another message followed. Please talk to me. She locked the phone and placed it back in her bag. At home, her husband sat on the floor of the living room. Papers surrounded him. Bills, notices, letters from banks. He held his head in his hands. For the first time, he felt truly alone. Not abandoned, exposed. He remembered moments he once ignored. Her quiet help. Her patience. Her refusal to complain. He thought silence meant nothing. Now he understood. Silence had been her strength. The next morning, news broke again. A headline spread fast. Silent founder steps down from all personal holdings. People were confused. Why would someone with so much power walk away? Only one man understood the truth. She was not running. She was free. And his fall was complete. The courtroom was quiet when she entered. No cameras. No noise. No drama. Only truth. She sat on one side of the room, calm and still. Simple clothes. No jewelry. Her hands rested quietly on her lap. She looked the same as always, ordinary, unnoticed. But everyone in the room knew who she was now. Across from her, her husband sat stiffly beside his lawyer. His suit was expensive, but it could not hide the weight on his shoulders. His eyes were tired. His face looked smaller somehow, like the man inside had shrunk. This was not the ending he imagined. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Then silence returned. The lawyer spoke first. Papers were passed. Dates were read. Numbers were mentioned. Everything sounded cold and official. She listened without emotion. This was not personal anymore. This was closure. Her husband's lawyer argued loudly at times. He spoke about marriage, shared life, joint success. He tried to paint a picture where everything belonged to both of them. Then her lawyer stood. He spoke softly. He spoke clearly. He spoke with facts. Every transfer. Every document. Every signature. All of it pointed in one direction. Her. The judge listened carefully. The room felt heavy. Her husband leaned toward his lawyer and whispered something urgently. The lawyer shook his head slightly. There was nothing left to say. She felt it then. Not joy. Not revenge, relief. The judge spoke again, slowly and firmly. The decision was clear. Ownership confirmed. Claims denied. Divorce finalized. The sound of the gavel echoed once. It was over. Her husband's shoulders dropped. He stared at the table, unable to lift his head. The man who once spoke loudly now had nothing to say. She stood calmly and turned to leave. He looked up. "Wait," he said. His voice cracked. She stopped but did not turn around. "I didn't know," he said. "I swear. I didn't know." The room stayed silent. She turned slowly and looked at him. "You didn't want to know," she said softly. That was all. She walked out. Outside, the air felt lighter. She took a deep breath and felt something she had not felt in years. Freedom. Across the city, the news spread again. People discussed the case. Some praised her strength. Others questioned her silence. Many asked why she stayed quiet for so long. They did not understand. Silence was not weakness. Silence was survival. Later that day, she returned to the hospital. Not as a founder. Not as a headline. Just as a woman. She walked through the halls slowly. Nurses smiled at her. A doctor nodded with respect. Patients rested peacefully. This place was alive. This place mattered. She stopped near a window and watched the sunlight fall across the floor. Her reflection looked different now, lighter. Her phone buzzed once. A message from an unknown number. "I lost everything." She stared at the screen for a moment. Then she deleted it. Some losses were earned. That evening, her husband returned to the empty house. The walls felt closer than before. The silence felt louder. There was no one to blame. No one to shout at. Only himself. He walked through the rooms slowly. Memories followed him everywhere. Moments he once ignored now returned clearly. Her quiet help. Her steady presence. Her patience. He sat on the floor and covered his face. Too late. Across town, she packed one small suitcase. Not because she had to leave, but because she wanted to move forward. She placed the old notebook inside. Some lessons deserved to stay. She turned off the light and stepped outside. Tomorrow would be different. Not louder. Not richer. Just honest. The quiet woman had spoken. And the world had finally listened. The morning sun rose softly over the city, touching buildings, streets, and people who knew nothing about the quiet war that had just ended. Life moved forward, unaware that one chapter had closed and another had begun. She stood near the window of a small apartment, holding a warm cup of tea. The place was simple, clean, peaceful, no guards. No luxury. No memories that hurt. For the first time in years, the silence felt kind. She watched people walking below. A mother holding her child's hand. An old man waiting for the light to change. A delivery worker laughing on his phone. Ordinary moments. Real moments. This was the life she wanted. Her phone buzzed, but she did not rush to answer it anymore. She had learned something important through pain and patience. Not every sound deserves attention. She picked up her bag and stepped outside. Today, she was visiting the hospital one last time, not as a founder, not as a name on paper, but as a person who needed closure. Inside the hospital, the air felt warm, alive. Nurses moved quickly. Doctors spoke with care. Patients rested, hopeful. This place breathed with purpose. She walked slowly through the halls. Some staff recognized her. They smiled. Some nodded quietly. No one stopped her. She stopped near a room where a young boy sat on a bed, smiling as a nurse adjusted his blanket. The boy waved at her. She waved back. In that moment, everything made sense. This was why she stayed quiet. This was why she endured. This was why she never asked for credit. She turned and walked away, her heart steady. Across the city, her husband sat alone in a small apartment he had rented in a hurry. The walls were bare. The rooms echoed when he walked. His phone lay on the table, silent. No calls. No messages. No one asking for him. He looked around and finally understood what he had. Lost. Not money. Not status. Her. The woman who stood beside him when he had nothing. The woman who stayed silent while he took credit. The woman he threw out when he believed she was weak. He lowered his head and closed his eyes. Regret came too late. Back in her apartment, she opened the old notebook one last time. She read the first page. The numbers. The dates. The quiet plans written in careful handwriting. She smiled softly. Then she closed it. Some chapters did not need to be reopened. That evening, she stood on her balcony as the city lights turned on one by one. She felt something she never felt before. Peace. No fear of tomorrow. No need to prove anything. No reason to stay silent anymore. She had spoken when it mattered. The news that night talked about the hospital again. But this time, her name was not mentioned. She had asked for it to be removed. The reporter said, "The founder has chosen to remain private." She turned off the TV, Privacy was her reward. Days passed. Then weeks. Her life became simple. Morning walks, quiet meals, helping where she could, without noise, without titles. People who met her never guessed her story, and that was fine. One afternoon, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I finally understand. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she deleted it. Understanding after destruction changes nothing. She placed the phone down and stepped outside, letting the sun warm her face. She had lost a marriage. She had lost years of silence, but she gained something far greater. Herself. The quiet woman who once stood in the rain, thrown out with nothing, had walked away with everything that truly mattered: dignity, truth, freedom. And somewhere out there, someone watching this story would learn the same lesson: that silence is not weakness, and the quiet ones often carry the strongest storms inside. If this story touched your heart, stay with us. More quiet truths are waiting to be told. Subscribe and don't miss the next story.